Nation. I'm Professor Don Bush, and I've been teaching accounting for about 30 years and been a CPA for about that long, and I've got lots of great ways to explain accounting. And today we are going to study one of my favorite things in accounting, and that is the statement of cash flows. I love the statement of cash flows. It's fun to produce. It tells you so much about businesses, and it's one of the first things I look at when I'm looking at an investment too, and which reminds me of a story. When I was in college, I was becoming a little overwhelmed and confused, and it just seemed so complicated, the world of finance. And one day, one of the finance professors was talking to the whole class and said, when you're trying to analyze an investment, focus on cash flows. Nothing else matters. And I always remember that. And from that day forward, it really simplified things for me. Things started to make sense. And out of all these years and all this time, I've yet to see an example where that old professor was wrong. It was amazing. So this statement here is about cash flows. And it occurred to me that the textbook was not explaining things as easily as it could be. The textbook had about 20 or 25 different sources of cash, which I thought was really confusing. And it occurred to me that there are only 4 different ways to get money. That's right, there's only 4 ways to get money. And a lot of people are blown away by this, but you can boil all the different ways to get money down to 4 different ways. And I've got them listed down below here, and we'll go over it. That's the essence of the lesson today. So here's the cash flow statement right here for Fred's Snowblower Service. There it is. And rather than starting out this lesson by going over the cash flow statement and all its little bits and pieces, I think it's better to understand, well, what are the 4 ways to get money? Because then you can look for them on the cash flow statement, and the cash flow statement becomes a lot more useful. So coming down a little bit further, here are the 4 ways to get money. And that's right, there's only 4. And so here we go. So the first one is profitable operations. And this is in business terminology here, profitable operations. But in everyday life, for you and me, it'd be, well, get a job. And that might be kind of hard for a lot of folks right now. Today is July 17th. We're in the middle of the COVID shutdown, and the economy is not doing so well. There are a lot of people getting laid off, so maybe getting a job right now is really hard for a lot of folks, and maybe for you too right now. So, but anyways, profitable operations. So that's one way for us to get money. Number 2 here is selling assets. And that would be more of a business term here, but in our own personal life, that'd be like selling our possessions. For instance, selling our car, selling our camera, selling our basketball, selling our skis, just having a big garage sales, just selling all your stuff. And the problem is, though, what do you do when you run out of stuff? Then you're in trouble. A third way to get money is borrowing. Taking out loans, a mortgage, student loans, credit cards. I've got that as an example right here, credit cards. You can also ask your parents for money or ask your roommates for money. And the thing here with borrowing money is that it's rather limited too. For instance, maybe the bank will give you a credit card or 2, and maybe you'll max those out. Maybe they'll send you a 3rd credit card, but are they going to keep sending you credit cards like a 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th credit card? I don't know. I wouldn't think so. And then lastly, and the last way to get money is very business oriented. It's owner investments. And a good example of that are the company sells stock, and owners invest money into the business by buying that stock. So we've only got 4 ways to get money. Now, over the years, students have tried to stump me on this and say, no, professor, you're wrong. You haven't thought of all the different ways to get money. And one way that people always suggest to me to get money is steal it. And I don't know if that's a reflection of my students that I have or what, but I hear that every semester. They'll say, hey, one way to get money that's not on the list is steal it. So I had to think about that a little bit, and you know what? Stealing money, that requires effort and planning, and you got to be probably good at it too, I would imagine. And so I thought, it's sort of like having a job, but not a socially acceptable job. And so I thought, well, what about like a drug dealer? Well, a drug dealer, they've got to get customers, they've got to get suppliers, they've got to maintain an inventory, they've got to maintain their cash, and probably a lot of other things that go into being a drug dealer. So to me, it sounds like a lot of work. So it's like having a job, but not a socially acceptable job. And so another one that stumped me for a while was donations. For instance, we've all probably gotten some money for our birthday or for Christmas, that kind of thing. Maybe grandma gave us some money. And so I thought, gifts and donations. And I thought, wow, maybe there is another source. But then I thought in the context of not-for-profits. Not-for-profits rely heavily oftentimes on donations and gifts. And for a lot of not-for-profits, that is part of the job. They have to go out and solicit donations. They've got to talk to people. They've got to advertise. There's a lot into getting donations. It's not easy, or fundraising auctions, that kind of thing. So donations in regard to not-for-profits, or maybe the government too, is part of the job. So far, there's only 4 sources of cash. And another one that almost stumped me too was leasing. But leasing is actually borrowing. You're actually borrowing money or getting financing through a lease. So it's part of borrowing. So anyway, so how can these 4 sources of cash help us? Well, what it does, it really will focus your attention on the cash flow statement. Now, one thing before we go down to the cash flow statement, another point about these 4 sources, they are not created equal. 3 out of the 4 are limited. And so if you were to guess which ones are limited, you'd have a 75% chance of getting at least one of them right here. So which ones are limited? Well, one of them that's limited is selling assets. What are you going to do after you sell your car and you sold your tennis racket and you sold your bowling ball and you sold your shoes? What are you going to do after that? And borrowing, that's limited too. People will lend you money, but up to a point. Ask your roommates for money and see how well that goes. Maybe they'll loan you money the first time, but second, third, fourth, fifth time, I don't know. Owner investments. Now, investors and owners, the reason why they're investors and owners is because they want to get a return on their investment. And they like to invest in companies that are profitable, doing well. The only source of cash that is potentially unlimited here is profitable operations. To give you an example, is that, I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but in the background, from where I'm looking, it's on the left-hand side from my monitor here. And I've got a drum set back there. You can just see one of the drums. And there are cymbals on this drum set, and the cymbals come from a company called Zeljan Cymbals. And this company originated in Turkey in the 1600s. And this has been a very, very profitable company over the centuries. And so that's one example, kind of an extreme example of unlimited money coming from profitable operations. So to narrow it all down, profitable operations here, this first one is the most important source of money. The others are limited. So when I look at a cash flow statement, the first thing I do is I look at profitable operations. I want to know that, number one. And then I want to see, well, what are other ways that they're getting money too? So coming down to this is the same old cash flow statement as up above, same numbers, exact same cash flow statement, but I just kind of marked this one up a bit. And what I've got here, I've got highlighted in yellow and I've got an arrow pointing at it. But here is Fred Snowblower Service, and the first thing I look for is profitable operations. So here's cash provided by operating activities. It's on every cash flow statement and it's positive. That's a really good sign. You want it positive. If it's negative, and I'm an investor, I am not interested in it at all. Now, Tesla, their cash provided by operating activities for for years and years was negative, but just recently it turned positive. So that's a good thing for Tesla. Now, another way that Fred Snowblower Service is getting money is, it says here, increase in long-term notes payable, $20,000. So they are borrowing money. So that's another source of cash. Borrowing money, that's not as good as having profitable operations, but it could be good for Fred in the fact that maybe Fred took out this loan and has a 5% interest rate, but maybe he's making 10% return off of that money. So maybe in Fred's case, it's a terrific thing. And other times it's a really bad thing. I knew this one business where they had negative profitable operations here. Cash provided by operating activities was negative. They were not doing so well. It was a construction company, and they were borrowing money for as much and as long as they could, and they were paying their top managers a lot of money. And where were they getting the money? Well, there's only 4 ways to get money, and this is how they were getting money. They were borrowing it. Now, I've only got 2 of the sources of money on here. I left off selling off assets. That's not on here. Owner investments is also not on here. And on these cash flow statements, oftentimes you're not going to see all 4 sources of cash. Maybe you'll see 1 or 2. And as in this case here. But what it does, it makes it so you can look at and understand this cash flow statement. Really important. So here is the moral to the story in a nutshell. Here's what it is. When you look at this cash flow statement, this bottom line number here, net change in cash, I don't find that real meaningful. To me, that's not that important. But what is really important, I look number 1 right here. Cash provided by operating activities, that's where my eye goes first. If it's positive, that's good. If it's negative, not good. And then I look for other sources of cash. And it looks like there's a second source of cash. It's not real big compared to their profitable operations, and I'd have to look deeper into the company to know if this was good or bad, but that's where they're getting money. So anyways, I hope this lesson served as a good introduction to the cash flow statement, and I'm going to be bringing up those 4 sources of cash a lot, so it's good to remember them. There's only 4 ways to get money. That's it. So if you like this lesson, let me know. Hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll catch you later. And over and out.